A war broke out in the Middle East 3 weeks ago. You probably heard about it. What you probably didn't hear is that the people paying the highest price right now aren't American, aren't Iranian, aren't even in the Middle East. 20% of the world's oil moved through a strip of water barely 21 miles wide. Iran just said nobody crosses. And Trump gave Iran a 48 hours ultimatum. Upon the Strait of Hormuz or lose your power grid. Iran retaliated.
If Iran's fuel and energy infrastructure is targeted by the enemy, all energy, information technology, and desalination infrastructure belonging to America and the regime in the region will be targeted.
So Trump changed the deadline from 48 hours to 5 days. And that's when you know this isn't going to plan. And somewhere in the middle of the standoff, fuel queues are getting longer in Nairobi, Johannesburg. Petrol prices in Lagos just jumped. South Africa is quietly calling a Nigerian billionaire asking if he can supply the whole country for the next 12 months. And Julius Malema, in full voice, full chest, walked up to a microphone and said,
"We are with Iran. We are Iran. We stand with Iran. We don't stand with imperialism. We don't stand with America."
So this week on the Strategic Lens, we have 4 stories, one world on the edge, and the question Africa has been avoiding for far too long. When other people's wars start draining your economy, what exactly is your move? So you already know the basics. US and Israel struck Iran. Iran hit back. Hormuz got messy. So let's skip the recap and go straight to the 2 things that are actually keeping military strategies up at night right now. The first part of this first story is anybody actually talking? Trump issued a 48-hour ultimatum upon Hormuz or we obliterate your energy infrastructure. Iran did not blink. They came back with something that made that deadline feel like a suggestion. They said, bomb our energy infrastructure and we bomb our neighbors' infrastructure too. Desalination plants, power grids across the Gulf and the Hormuz stays closed until you rebuild every single power plant that you destroyed from scratch. After hearing all this, Trump quietly extended the deadline from 48 hours to 5 days. And this is where it gets murky and interesting. Washington started telling the press that negotiations were underway. Back channel talks, a deal being worked out. Iran's response anyway after hearing this was immediate and blunt. So Washington says talks are happening. Tehran says that is a lie, designed to move troops and play the oil market. You see, one of them is not telling the truth, and in a standoff where a single miscalculation could take out drinking water for millions of Gulf residents, because desalination is how Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait get fresh water. That gap between the 2 stories is genuinely dangerous. But here is the thing, that whole debate, talks or no talks, just got overtaken by something far more unsettling. And that just takes us to the second part of the story. America just won the battle, and it might not matter. This week, the US military just announced they have destroyed almost the entirety of Iran's navy. And according to Trump, the US has now completely eliminated Iran's ability to plant mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, on paper, that sounds like a decisive win. Navy gone, mine threat neutralized. Hormuz can reopen. Except Iran immediately responded with something nobody in Washington anticipated. And this is not the first time Iran has been underestimated in this war. Remember when the war started, Iran started sending rockets. But nobody thought Iran had hypersonic weapons until recently. Iran just made headlines saying they have developed a new technology, one they claim no other military in the world currently has. The ability to plant mines in the Strait of Hormuz using missiles and drones. Now, think about what that means. The entire US military operation to destroy Iran's navy was built on a specific assumption. If you eliminate their ships, you eliminate the ability to mine the strait. You see, that's how it has always worked. You need vessels to lay mines. You need a navy. Iran just said, we skip that requirement entirely. If that technology actually works, and right now nobody outside Iran can actually verify whether it does, then it doesn't matter how many Iranian ships are at the bottom of the Gulf. They can mine Hormuz right from Tehran, from the mountains, from anywhere within missile range. Now, Iran's claim hasn't been independently verified. It is entirely possible this could be psychological warfare, a way to keep shipping companies scared and tankers packed even after US military action. Now, bluffing has worked for Iran before. You don't actually need the technology to work. You just need shipping companies to believe it might work. And right now, they believe it because tankers are still not moving. So we have at the end of this week a situation where the US has arguably won every conventional military exchange and the strait is still closed. Iran has no navy left and the shipping lane is empty. Now that tells you something about how this war is actually being fought. It's not about ships anymore. It's about perception, risk, and who controls the cost of uncertainty. While Trump, Israel, and Iran are busy blowing up things, one man in Lagos is quietly doing the opposite, building. The Dangote petroleum refinery in Lekki, Lagos, 650,000 barrels per day capacity, one of the largest refinery on earth, not just in Africa, on the entire planet. And this February, it hit full capacity. Now, here is what you need to understand about what it took to get there. This man did not have an easy road. This man had money. Yes, he had the vision. Yes, but what he also had was his own country fighting him at every single turn. Fuel importers in Nigeria, the people who have been making a comfortable living, bringing in petrol from abroad, they did not want this refinery to succeed, because a refinery that works means their business model dies. So they pushed back hard. Parts of the Nigerian government were not exactly ruling out the red carpet either. They were regulatory battles, import license disputes. The governments kept approving fuel imports even after the refinery came online, effectively competing against the very facility Nigerians spent years waiting for. And then the one that really got people talking, the head of the regulatory agency went on record claiming the refinery was producing substandard fuel.
Dangote refinery, as well as some major refineries like Walter Smith's refinery, Arade refinery, they're producing between 650 to 1,200 ppm. So in terms of quality, their quality is much inferior to the imported quality.
That claim was tested live on television and it was proven false. Then came the monopoly argument. People said it was too big, too powerful, cornering the market. But here is the thing about that argument, and I want to be direct about it. Dangote did not stop anyone from building a refinery or another refinery. He didn't block other investors. He didn't lobby to keep competitors out. He just went and built the thing. He did the work. He took the risk for over a decade and he was successful at it. That's not a monopoly. That's just what success looks like when everyone else decided it was too hard. And now, while the war in the Middle East is strangling the world's fuel supply, that refinery is the reason Africa has options. Within weeks of the Hormuz crisis, 12 cargoes, 456,000 tons of refined fuel shipped out to Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, Tanzania, Ghana and Togo. Now, South Africa is negotiating a 12-month supply contract. Ghana and Kenya have made contact. Recent report says that a spokesperson told AFP they are even getting jet fuel requests from outside the continent. For the first time during a global energy crisis, African governments pick up the phone and called Lagos. Not Rotterdam, not Riyadh, not Houston. Lagos. That is Aliko Dangote's legacy. Built despite the sabotage, the false accusations, the political resistance, and the people who had every incentive to see him fail. Those are the importers. Aliko Dangote, despite all that, didn't stop building. And right now, Africa is grateful he didn't. So while all this is unfolding, oil prices spiking, Hormuz burning, African capitals scrambling for fuel. Julius Malema walks up to a microphone and says this:
We are with Iran. We are Iran. We stand with Iran. We don't stand with imperialism.
Now, I want to be honest with you about something. The reaction to this speech has been all over the place. On one side, people are saying, finally, an African leader calling out imperialism by name, calling out the double standards, saying what leaders behind closed doors won't say publicly. On the other side, critics are asking, is this solidarity or is this recklessness? Iran is not a straightforward freedom fighter state. They have their own records on regional interventions. So are we Iran advance African interests, or does it just give Africa's diplomatic relationships another bruise? So here is what I find genuinely interesting from a strategic standpoint. South Africa is right now scrambling to secure fuel from Dangote's refinery because Iran's blockade of Hormuz is strangling their energy supply. South African families are obviously feeling that at the pump. South African businesses are feeling it in their cost of production. And in that exact same moment, the most prominent opposition leader in South Africa stands up and says, we are with Iran, we stand with Iran. Now, I'm not saying that to discredit Malema. I'm saying it because it's a genuinely honest illustration of how complicated this world actually is. You can be economically hurt by a war and still believe the side fighting that war has a legitimate grievance. Those two things can both be true at the same time. South Africa is paying an energy price because of what Iran did at Hormuz. And Malema is saying that what Iran is resisting, American military dominance, the double standards of Western foreign policy, that resistance is something he stands with. That's not hypocrisy. That's just the tension that comes with having a conscience and a fuel bill at the same time. And here is the deeper question Malema is pointing at, even if his framing is divisive. What is Africa's foreign policy doctrine in a world of competing great powers? When the US and Iran goes to war and Africa's fuel prices spike by 40%, what does non-alignment actually look in practice? Do you stay silent? Do you pick a side? Do you build your own refinery and try to insulate yourself from the whole mess? You see, there is no clear answer, but the conversation has to happen. Let me pull this week together, because these three stories, they look like they're about different things. They are not. Story 1. The US and Iran are fighting a war where America wins every conventional battle and the strait stays closed. Anyway, why? Because Iran changed the rules. Missiles deployed mines, no navy needed. The playbook the US prepared for became irrelevant, and while the two sides argue about whether they are even talking, the fog of that war drifts straight into Africa's fuel market. Story 2. One man in Lagos spent years building something his own government tried to slow down. His competitors tried to discredit. Critics framed it as dangerous while they built nothing. And when the world's energy system cracked under the pressure of that war, it was his refinery African governments turned to. Not Europe, not the Gulf, Nigeria. That's what happens when you build anyway. Story 3. Malema steps into this moment and asks the question nobody in an official government position will ask out loud. When Washington and Tehran drag the world into their confrontation and Africa pays the price at the pump, what does African solidarity actually look like? Is it rhetoric? Is it a refinery? Is it both? Now, here is what I keep coming back to. Iran outmaneuvered the world's most powerful military. Not with more weapons, but with a different idea. They made conventional response irrelevant. Dangote outmaneuvered decades of African dependency. Not with government programs, but with a private bet that almost nobody believed in. Both of them, in completely different ways, refused to play by the rules they were handed. Maybe that's the lesson this week is actually teaching. Africa has been handed a set of rules too. Import the fuel, depend on the Gulf, stay out of the rooms where the big decisions get made. Watch From the outside, when the world catches fire, the refinery in Lagos is proof that those rules are not laws. They are just habits. The question for the continent, and maybe all of us watching, is how many more people are willing to do what Dangote did? Build the thing, absorb the resistance, keep going. Because the next crisis isn't coming, it's already on its way. If you made it this far, you already see the world differently from most people in your timeline. One thing I will ask before you close this tab, drop your answer in the comments. Africa just called Lagos instead of Riyadh. Is that a turning point or a temporary fix? I genuinely want to know what you think, not just your take, your reasoning. I'm Asymmetric. You are watching Africa Today, and this is the Strategic Lens. If you haven't joined this channel yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. See you in my next video.